Hello, and I'd like to welcome my good friend, Adrian Priddle. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, David. Thank you for having me on.
Good, good. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So we're here to discuss the concepts of future-proofing yourself. And I'm really, keen to find out how Adrian has developed and self-managed his working career. I'd love to find out what you've learned along the way, what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, and perhaps a few other stories. And what advice, if you could turn the clock back, what advice would you like to have given yourself, and therefore what advice would you like to give perhaps young adults going out into the working environment at the moment? And then to finish off with, as usual, the last question will be, what are your next steps in future proofing yourself? So that's where we're going to get to. So here we go then with the first question, and I'd just like to ask you, give us just a snapshot, a brief overview of your career today. How's it gone?
Well, to use those lovely pictures behind you, David, I mean, my career would be a game of two halves, as the football analogy would go. I used to be an auditor with Deloitte. I used to work there for about 12 years auditing. So therefore auditing, looking at financial statements, getting evidence, assurance around that sort of stuff. And I did that for retail clients and for football organisations, so football clubs. After about 10 years there, realising it wasn't, I had a really great conversation with an important mentor of mine and somebody who's affected my career a lot. Moved into L&D in learning and development in Deloitte, spent about 2-3 years on a secondment there, and then left to set up myself, and have been in this world of freelance and small consultancy work in learning and development ever since. So 17 years now. Brilliant. So two halves: the audit world, the L&D.
And which ones did you enjoy the most?
Oh, the learning and development.
You sure?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It took me a long time, and it took this this guy who's a partner of mine, who was my boss at the time, and we'll come on to this probably in some of the other things, asking me some really great questions that possibly at the time felt really uncomfortable and not things I wanted to answer. But asked me some really good questions that actually made me realise I'd been doing what I was doing because of a lot of things that were involved in it that I really enjoyed, but it wasn't what I wanted to be doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And do you have any good stories about football clubs that you can perhaps share with me offline?
I could share a few offline. I could definitely share a few offline. Some of the saucier ones and the interesting moments and things that have said. People say football's one of those wonderful industries where you are going to meet characters all along the way. Some of them.
I shouldn't have asked that question because everyone's going to be really intrigued now. So if anybody wants to give Adrian Priddle a ring, contact me. I'll give you his number and you can phone him up and he'll tell you all the stories.
Let me give you one then. It's one good one, which is a guy. You heard a player called Francis Banali?
Yes.
Yeah, so Francis Banali was probably not the most famous Southampton player, but he was one of my clients that Southampton were a client at the time. My father got to 70 years old, and while I was down there, I took him down for a corporate leisure piece. Now, I'd known Francis as a player when I was watching him. Then I'd also known him when I bumped into him in financial work in the club, which was great. Yeah. Not much chat then. It still was fairly football. But what stunned me was when I met him with my dad, was this guy who was kind of, a Premier League footballer, earned lots of money, done all these things, was an unbelievably humble, caring, nice bloke who looked after my 70-year-old dad and frankly made his birthday one he'll probably never forget.
Wow. That's nice.
And it was just, you hear a lot about the people who have big Lamborghinis and who have lots of money and that sort of stuff. You don't tend to hear so much about some of them who are really quite nice blokes and people.
That's good. Refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you wish you had known at the start of your career?
I suppose I'll pick on two things. The most important one, which I don't think you realise until later on in your career, is the power of your connections and your network. So I met an awful lot of people in my first sort of 4 or 5 years, and just met them and worked with them. And then I think later on in my career, I realised actually how many of these people were really important to me. And I think if somebody had said to me early on, look, you're going to meet a lot of people through this job, you're going to get a lot of opportunities, grab it, you know, a little bit like in your book where you talk about the notebook and things at the back, that sort of stuff. I think that, that grabbing some of that network would have really, really helped me, because undoubtedly the relationships and connections have been hugely valuable to me in learning and development, building my business, and generally life. I suppose the one I would also pick out that's a little bit philosophical is that I probably started in my 20s under the misapprehension that the more you got promoted and the higher grade you got, the happier you'd be. And that the next grade was the thing, therefore, that I wanted, and the next promotion was what I wanted. And it took me a little while before I worked out that just wasn't true.
You just got more stuff to deal with.
It's got more stuff, more responsibility, more stress, and quite often it wasn't stuff that was interesting. Yeah. So I didn't mind stuff that was difficult and hard and challenged me and developed me. Yeah. But stuff that was frankly just boring. Yeah. I seem to get more of it.
Yeah. So what was the best piece of advice perhaps you got given by any mentor or someone in your network?
Right. So I'll go back to this partner guy as a result, because the question that changed my entire outlook on my career was, when you retire, Aid, and you sit back and look at your career, what will success look like to you? And that was the thing that shook me out of this kind of the next grade, the next promotion thing, and into, actually, why do I enjoy working? What do I enjoy doing? Which bits of what I am currently doing make me go, yeah, that was a good day. And how therefore do I get to do more of that? Yeah. And do more and more. And so that question really changed my outlook on my career. So I think, the earlier we can start to think about, what really is it that makes me feel buzzed about work? What do I want to be doing? What will success look like? When I look back in my 60s on my career, or possibly my 70s, given my age.
You've got ages to go.
Ages to go, 20
ages
years
and ages.
That's why I've got to future-proof myself, isn't it, David?
Exactly. Yes, we all have to. We've got ages and ages to go. Exactly.
So what do I want to look back on and go, yeah, great. That was a terrific, that was a great career. I enjoyed doing that. So one of your questions later is, what do you enjoy the most? You said we'd talk about that a bit. I want a really long list of that stuff.
Okay. So before that question, is there anything you'd have done differently?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
With hindsight, that wonderful thing called hindsight.
Exactly. Yeah. What had I done differently? I'd have definitely worried less. I'd have spent less time worrying about things that really didn't matter. I'm amazed.
Controllables.
Yeah. The amount of times I look back and think, why did I bother worrying about that? It was just going to work out. And even if it didn't work out, it wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
So, actually identifying what's important versus what's not controllable or not important, or those sort of ways. I don't think I was very good at that for a while. And that would have done differently. People often say to me, now I'm freelance, I don't know if you've had this one, David, that, do you wish you'd left earlier? Do you wish you'd done it? Surely could have done it. Do you wish you'd done it before? And for me, I feel really I'm really happy about the 10 years or 12 years that I spent into life.
Yeah.
I had great opportunities.
That's why you got your experiences.
Yeah, exactly. I loved what I was doing. I enjoyed it. I met some fabulous people to work with.
Yeah.
And I think I left at pretty much the right time for me and for them.
Okay. So what have you enjoyed most in your career and you've pleased that you've done?
How long we got, David?
I like that answer.
So, the one that's going to stand out for me, because I am a football fan from my Deloitte time, is I was lucky enough to work on the financing work of Southampton's new stadium at St Mary's when they moved from the Dells to St Mary's. And having been a Southampton fan for a long time, having loved the club, that was more than just a bit of work. That was something I was passionate about doing and helping them. So I really enjoyed that. And every time I go there, I look at it and think, in a really little way, because it was mainly spreadsheets and stuff like that, but in a little way, I had something to do with this. So I'm quite chuffed and proud of that. in my modern day, in my career now, I think I would say the things that I enjoy the most. I love the variety of what we get to do. The fact that we meet with so many businesses, we help with so many different types of problems, and just the two things that really stand out are those really interesting people, those people who just have a story, everyone's story, and just learning how everybody are different and things happen. And then also those light bulb moments. I'm sure you've had it, David, where you stood there and you think, hold on, that's just moved your thinking a little bit, hasn't it? You've asked a question, or maybe you've just played back what the person was saying, and they've just stopped for that second and gone, oh yeah, okay, maybe I'll think a bit differently about that. I think that's a really, really big one for me. And I suppose as the product one for me, I recently, about 4 years ago, started with a new financial services client, and they asked me to come in and from scratch put together a career development program for their people. And that's been hugely successful with their people, lots of great feedback, loads of people through it. I'm still in contact with tons of the people who go through and see them for coffee when they're down there. And it's been a 4-year relationship. So that's nice, probably one of those really nice ones where you watch stuff grow through. So there's a variety of different things that I'm proud of, really.
Yeah, I mean, that is nice when you can actually sort of see those people develop and grow and know that you've had a contribution towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just even if it's just, it's not necessarily that they agree with me. Quite often when you're having some of the best moments in the classroom or working with a group or a coachee, it's not that they go, yeah, I'll do that, I'll do it that way. It's that you've asked a question or you've made a point that's just made them think about it differently, and you can watch them think, and they've taken something on board. That's really quite fulfilling, I find.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and if you could turn the clock back then, perhaps the advice and the mentoring advice you've been given some of the young adults that you've been working with in the last 4 years, what advice do you wish you'd have been given, and what advice would you give them now?
I think a really high level one, I'd say enjoy the highs and don't get too down about the lows.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit philosophical, I know, and a bit kind of eat the roses along the way or smell the roses, that sort of thing. But it was kind of, I wasn't very good at enjoying the highs, and quite good as a younger 20-year-old of finding fault in what I was doing. And thereby taking responsibility for the lows. And I think actually there's a bit of just enjoy the highs, and the lows happen. Do your best you can, take your learning out of them, and move on through, because it's probably not going to be that big a deal.
Yeah.
I also be assertive and factual. I thought to myself, because I'm on MBTI sort of scales, Myers-Briggs. I'm one of these feelings type people. So there's quite a lot of emotion goes on for me in decision making. And I think there are times I can look at in my career where being a little more assertive about my point of view, but in a factual rather than an emotional way, would have been more successful. So I'd probably get
understanding yourself a little bit, having that little better self-awareness.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think that came to me relatively later in my career, and that's been helpful to understand that one. So the other one I would say is actually doing some career development thinking. So the first one would be buy your book. Admittedly, it didn't exist when I was in my 20s, but I recommend to a lot of people to get it, because I hear a lot of people nowadays say, "Oh, I don't really need a plan. It's in here. It's in my head." Yeah. I don't, what's the point of a plan? It's going to change in a year. And actually, it's not about the plan and the document. It's about just doing the bit of thinking and investing.
Creating the ideas.
Time, having ideas, exactly, all that. And your book, I found a really good way of helping people to find their angle through that and their way of doing that. So, I think that would be my one. Taking career development planning fairly seriously as a thought process. Yes. Rather than necessarily focusing on just producing a Word document.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I think that's the problem in companies, isn't it, with appraisal systems and PDR systems. Yeah. It just doesn't elaborate enough, and they don't then have the real proper conversations because managers don't feel that they can do it. And the team member doesn't feel that they should go that way either, because they don't want to tell them what their ideas are. But if they did share them, you get so much more out of it. And that's why it's good to have your network of people that you can trust to have those conversations.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think in the past there's been too much focus on the document coming out of the PDR.
Yeah.
You know, what feedback have you got written down,
Yeah.
rather than what feedback have you had in real-time conversations, you know, and talking with your manager about how you're doing, and as you say, support and coaching-wise, rather than have you filled in the annual appraisal documentation.
Yes. Let's mark it.
Yeah, let's mark it. Lots of people now, you know, in the worst case scenario, people often do that in a retrospective way. They get to the end of the year and they fill in their objectives for the year. What's the point of that?
Yeah. Well, at least you can say you've achieved a few.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, exactly. It's true.
Yeah. Okay. So what's been the most challenging period of your career, and what did you learn about yourself?
Good question. Most challenging period so far, I would have said that crossroads between auditing and learning development. So there were two elements in that. There was pretty hard. I walked into my partner's office as a senior manager, feeling fairly successful and doing some important things, and saying, okay, so how do I move on to the next grade, which was director. And he didn't quite put it this bluntly, but the rough message was, well, you don't, because you won't make that and you're in the wrong place to do it. And that was a pretty painful place, because having spent most of my career going up the ladder fairly easily through things and achieving times, to suddenly hit a brick wall and think, actually, I'm not really clear why I've been going up this ladder.
Yeah.
You kind of just work very hard and do stuff, and then realise actually this isn't where you wanted to be at the end. So that was quite a soul searchy sort of time. I was lucky to have a guy who was brave enough to tell me something I really didn't want to hear, and then to cope to understanding it.
Tough love, as we call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but tough love, I suppose, with the coaching afterwards, because I think he could have easily just left me in the easy option would have been to have told me it. I could have resigned and gone and been a financial controller for another company somewhere, and I still wouldn't have been happy.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Afterwards, it gets me to make the right choice.
Yes. Yeah.
That was
anything else you've learned about yourself that through challenging times? I'm
not very good on my own. This current period of times, as we now go into the new world of coronavirus, I can't even say it, coronavirus.
Yeah. You need to drink more bottles of it.
Huh?
You need to drink more bottles of it.
With
some lime in the top.
I might well be resorting to that at home. So I absolutely love my job, because I get to be involved with so many people. One of the things I'm going to find quite a challenge is making sure I use enough of the technology, enough of different ways to fill that gap, because I think that's going to be quite so I've learned a lot about myself in terms of where I work best as preferences.
Yeah.
And thankfully what I've done because of that is there are times when I know I'm going to be doing something outside my preference. So when I am designing material or designing new courses on my own in the office, that's what worked for me. So I know what time of day I am most productive doing that, and when it is basically a waste of time, because I'm just going to sit there surfing. Yeah. So, I think there is a lot for me in understanding. When you understand yourself, it's not just about saying, oh, this is what I'm good at, so I'll just do this. This is what I'm good at. So when I have to do these things, because every job involves it, it's the right time. What sort of things can I put in place to help me? And that's stuff. So that's learning the self-awareness thing has been really strong for me.
Yeah, good. And I think that's really important at this moment in time, because we're doing this at the start at the beginning of a journey of the coronavirus, and we've got no idea which direction it's going. But I did have a conversation with someone yesterday, and they're going to set up virtual coffee mornings. My son has already messaged me on his first day of having to work at home. He's bored senseless, and he's setting up his own virtual pub, which is very much in my son's line. And I think we're going to have virtual football matches so we can watch. I think in the next few weeks, we're going to be doing stuff that we never did before because, yeah, we're not very good at just sort of sitting in this office. I mean, I'm in my office at the moment, and I'm a bit easier on working with myself. I quite like it, but then I do need people to talk to. That's one of the reasons I've set up these podcasts and things. But there are certain people. There's a good friend of ours that we both know, Gary Me. I've already spoken to him today, and we said, like, if you get bored, just give us a ring. And I think we're going to start doing more of that. So hopefully some really good things can happen, and build up even greater friendships from that. So, coming to the end of this conversation then, what are your next steps in future-proofing yourself?
Well, I've got one of the things I've done for a number of years now is I've got accredited in a number of sort of profiling tools. So that's where some of the self-awareness stuff comes from. So I've done all the range of Myers-Briggs, OPQ, Wave, Insight, all these sort of things. And a colleague of mine has just set one up called the Logical Levels, which works on something a lady called Hilary Barnett, working with Robert Dilts. And I'm going to be getting an accreditation on that and looking at that. So I'm really looking forward to that. It sounds different, and that always tests me. I think like many, I'm going to be looking at technology in terms of getting a bit sharper with using some of the technology to deliver coaching, to deliver virtual workshops and things. And when I read your book, the thing that I started into straight away was podcasting and looking at that, because the thing that struck me is I've got this enormous network of people who I love chatting to. Yeah. And there's a fantastic excuse to go and chat to them about stuff and to find out what they've got to offer, be they clients, be they consultants, people who've gone in different directions and different places. So, hopefully. And one of the things that will allow me to do over the next few months is to get deeper into that, because I don't need to be with them.
Yes. Yeah. That's good.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just before we finish, I've just got to go to my my bookcase. Just hang on one moment.
Okay.
Now, this is bad planning, because I should have done it before we started. But Adrian has actually written a wonderful book all about networking, and I would agree with what Adrian said at the start. If you had more advice, to network more, and it's something I never really understood in my early years. Now, as Adrian also mentioned, in my notebooks, I have lists of people that, I must keep in contact with on a very, very regular basis, along with my huge database of sort of HR managers, training managers, business owners. And it is amazing how important the networking is. And, not just to sort of sell them your services and your businesses, but sometimes we all need a bit of support.
Yeah. I think so for example, a good example for me is the people who I've met at this client career development wise. Thank you for the plug. Recently, who I've been catching up with on the old on LinkedIn and stuff like that, messaging them. And now normally I'll be having coffees. I'll be going in and saying, look, I'm going to be there for a day. I'll be in early in the previous day. Let's have a coffee in the evening or something. I'd normally do it that way, but actually now we're in this situation. Loads of that can be done using Zoom, FaceTime, Skype. There's so many different ways we can do that, and actually we can give each of us a bit of a lift when we need some support, when we need some ideas, and actually sometimes we just need to know that other people are finding it tough too.
Yeah, a bit of sharing. Well, not sharing the virus, but sharing our thoughts and feelings. Yeah. Get myself into trouble there. I'm going to have Boris knocking on my door. What advice are you giving people about sharing? I'm going to be zapped away. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's much appreciated. And I did want to ask you the question, did you actually audit the books of Portsmouth Football Club when Peter Storey was there and it nearly went bankrupt? Was it his fault and Harry Redknapp's, or was it really your fault? But you don't have to answer that question. And if anybody...
Categoric no.
Okay, all right. I'll let you off there with that one then, yeah. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon, and enjoy the rest of your week.
You too, David. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thanks then.